time, girls sat on one side, and the boys always sat on the other side. I mean, because you didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
It was just, and it was all servicemen anyway.
Mhm.
That's what it was. Things then are a lot different than what they are now.
Yeah.
And so they stood there, and the guys would sit there and look the girls over, I guess, and decide which of them wanted to dance. So Izzy was standing sort of in the second row, because they just standing there looking at her, look them over, and nobody moved. They just stood there. It takes you about one dance before they'll decide to brave enough to go over and ask. And just out of the bunch, Izzy stepped around the guy and walked straight over to me and asked me to dance. I was the first one. I thought, holy cow. So we danced. He was a good dancer. That was for sure. He was a good dancer. And when then he escorted you back so you could sit down, and he went back over there, and I leaned over. The girls were all sitting down this way. There were 6 of us. Of course, there was a lot of us there, but just I looked over and I said, well, which one of you want my glasses? I said, oh, shut up. You know, that was funny.
Yeah.
Fun. For sure. And then then they were mingling by then. Right after that, because the ice was broken. And then there was this real tall guy that came over and wanted to dance with me. And I said, yeah. So I went out, danced about half the way through there, and Izzy came over and cut in.
Yeah.
See, and so then from then on, he always come over and almost every dance from then on. We danced together, and around here they didn't know. There's 2 kinds of waltzes. And the Viennese waltz, the people around here didn't know how to do it too well. Mother taught us, of course, she came from back in Provost, so they knew. And he came over and he did the Viennese waltz. I was kind of surprised, and then I understood that he had kind of learned it from North Dakota, because that's where he was. But that was, so then from then on, it just, he would, of course you want to know a little about it.
Sure.
If you don't want to hear it, say so.
I like it.
So then I had my own car, because Grandpa went out and found the right car for me, so it would hold up to, because I lived in Oakview at that time. And so I just drive back and forth there, and to buy the material and things for the kids' dresses, I grew the material. I grew the crops, vegetables, and I would bring them to town, and one grocery store was owned by the private guy, and he'd buy them. So from what I sold the vegetables for is what I could have the money enough to buy the material to make the clothes. I mean, I was that broke. But anyway, he wanted to take me home, and I told him absolutely not. That was about the second time. He said, I'll take him. And I said, no way. He said, well, I'll see you get home okay. And I said, no way. I says, no one's following me. Because Grandma would have the kids sleep over there overnight. So, and I said, no, I says, you follow me, I'll call the cops on you. Like I told you, I didn't give a hoot about guys. They could go out and drown for all I care. So, and I thought I had the fun dancing. That's all I was there for. So that, about the 4th time, well, I'd go down there. He'd say, are you coming down? And I said, no. And then he says, yeah, you come on down to the dance. And so I finally said, well, the girls always want to be girl, and it's not doing any harm, so why not? So I went down there. When I got out of the car, walked over to where it was. There was a porch there, and he was standing on the porch there waiting for me. I went over there, so you had to buy your tickets. So I went over, and he said, I've already got all the tickets. I thought, wow, that's interesting. That's very good. So went in, danced, and came out. Well, I'll see you get home okay. I said, no, you're not. Okay. He said, well, if you'll come, you'll be down next week. And I said, no, I couldn't afford it. I didn't have nothing. I didn't have 2 pennies to represent the band. I said, no, I won't be down next week. So he says, well, it's all right. If you come on down, he says, I'll have the tickets. You don't have to buy the tickets. I'll have them. So somewhere around there, later on, he told me he had a hunch that I didn't have any money. So but I didn't know that till long years later.
Yeah.
But anyway, then it's about the fourth time I was down there, and so I looked around, made sure that everybody was cleared out, and so then I backed up the car and went over to Grandma's, and of course I was on the wrong side of the street because I just instead of parking, I moved over there, parked because I went and got the kids and put them in the car. And when I parked, I thought it was real odd that there was a car coming. Hers was the next street. None of this was built at that time.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's odd that there's a car coming up there.
Yeah.
And so when I shut off, I sat there a minute and didn't seem to move. I said, oh, there's this neighbor down the street. So I got out of the car. And when I started to walk up her walk, that car came up and parked right behind me. And so then he got out, walked over there. I says, I told you not to follow me home. And he he stood there and listened. We got through. He says, well, what are you going to do? He said, I don't know what happened to him there. It's just that. And he said something about you're picking up the kids. I said, what kids? He says, your kids. He says, I didn't say anything to you about ever having kids. I made sure of that. Not a word. He says, I know you have a kid. I said, you either have one or two. He says, I haven't figured that one out yet. He says, I know you came here to get your kid. And I said, all right, well, you're through then. He said, yeah, okay. But
enjoy your life. Bye.
I said, no. He says, no. He says, I came down, and he says, for somehow or another he knew that's coming to Grandma's house, so they go on home from there because she watches kids. And so he says, well, he says, I know that. And he says, I came over here, there's no sense you having to carry them around. And he says, so I will carry your kids and put them in the car. How do you want them? And that is out of blue sky. And you don't do those things. You don't. That's just so at the end. So finally, I thought, well, there's something else I can do. So I bring the one out, and Grandma bring it out, and he took them in the car. And the way he took them in the car was surprising to me, too. Because, guys, kids are kids, But he was particular.
Well, a lot of men are very frightened of children. I mean, it's like they're uncomfortable around them. But I think the fact that he had so much practice with animals and taking care of things in his life.
I thought about that. Because when I put them in the car, I put their heads off so just their feet. And that's the way he put them in the car. And that was unusual. Because guys don't know that much. So then he took the blankets to threw it up over him. He says, okay, now let's stay nice and warm. Because it's kind of a chilly day at night. He says, let's stay nice and warm. And he says, I'll see you next week. I said, you're not going with me where I'm going. He says, no, I won't. So I sat there watching him, and then so I drove off, and he didn't. He went the other way, toward the base. And I went on home. And the next week, she did the same thing then, because then it was sort of a habit, you know. Then I finally, after, he wouldn't tell me how he found out that I had kids. So after, quite a while. Then he finally, it was on a Sunday, he went over to church with me and came up to the house and had dinner. He brought me a beautiful bottle of wine.
How sweet.
To Ben, that was a big deal. To me, it was. So we had dinner, and he got the kids, and went outdoors and played in the yard, up there on the grass part. You've been up there. You have not been up there.
In the backyard or the front?
The back. There was no front yard. The house was. The hill was here. The road came down. The little road came down here, and this house was down here, back up to this wall.
Are you talking? Which house are you
talking?
Oakview. Okay, all right. I just vaguely remember. I've only been past it once or twice.
We haven't been up there. But it backed up to this road up here. and you had to go down the driveway to get in front.
Yeah, it's way down. It wasn't intended to be
It was
another
supposed to have
level
a second
on top.
house.
Yeah,
Never did. Never
Yeah.
could build it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we were there, then you had this section of lawn, and then from there on back was all, the whole thing was garden.
Yeah.
The garden was as big as this whole lot.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Which city was this in?
You know, it's up there about a half hour.
By kind of by Dennis. And,
Oh, okay.
They're not that far. I was in closer than that.
yeah, but sort of that direction.
Yeah. You'd almost have to know where it was.
Yeah, I would never be able to find it again.
Because they changed the things around. So
Your old house, the one that you had with Grandpa, what's the one? Burl?
on Brit.
No, that was not with Grandpa's house, but yours on Burl.
We had Ashwood first, then we were on Burl.
I think it was the Burl house. My mom and I drove past it quite a few years ago. It was beautiful. They've done such a beautiful job making it so pretty.
They did the one on Ashwood too.
Oh.
Ashwood was the first
I don't know
unit
that
they
one.
built out here.
Yeah.
There was the Ashwood, and then about 2 miles down, then it was Burl.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 2 more miles, we came here.
Yeah, it's pretty.
But that's way. Then he got out of the Navy, and he begged and pleaded and begged for me to go up there and live with his mother, and I wouldn't do that. I said no way, because I knew nobody up there,
Yeah.
and there was a German community.
Mhm.
I knew no German at all, and so I thought I don't want to get up there and get stuck. And how would I get? I would find a way home.
Sure, yeah.
How
with
would
the
you do it?
girls,
With a
yeah.
couple of kids. And so then he went to work in the mines up there. So he went to work a couple of months. And he decided he didn't like that.
Yeah, that's
And then he went over and met his old buddy a boss from the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
He went and called him up in Wyoming, and he told him he wanted him to come down there and paint with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he went in there, and they taught him how to paint business from the ground floor up. So he took. Then you couldn't buy the paints, the color you wanted. You had to mix the color you wanted.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And he had to learn all that. So they were about 2 months. He said, sitting out in the back of the garage or mix paint for 2 months.
Yeah.
He said he finally had it. Then he opened his own business up there for a while. And when he would get time off, they'd get to, I don't know now. To me, thinking back, I thought maybe it's twice a year. He'd get maybe 2 weeks off. But he's close enough to Dakota that on the other weekends, he'd go up with his mom all the time.
Yeah.
And then on the 2 weeks that he'd get off in the year, he'd come down here
Aw.
and bum around with us for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I don't have the biggest idea where he stayed. All I knew is he'd come over to the house here to say, I'm in town.
Yeah.
And I was living with Mother then. I had moved.
I was going to ask you that. How long did you? So the house that was on.
I did not sell the house in Oakview. I kept it.
So was that the house that you lived in when you were married? And then you sent him on his way, but you stayed in the house.
Yeah, I wasn't married to him. He stayed at the Navy base.
No, not Grandpa, but when you were first married with your 2 girls.
I was living at Grandma's house.
So you got married and lived with your parents after that?
No.
Okay, so you.
Now, if you want to know what happened there,
Yeah.
okay, when the kids were little, Linda was old enough to start kindergarten. So I would come down here. I had a job, and I'd take her to the nursery home where next door was the kindergarten place.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm talking about is your first husband.
First one, yeah.
Yeah.
Where was he?
So no, you were married to him, and what house did you live in?
He built the one at Oakview.
Okay, that's what I thought. So you shooed him on his way, and then you had the 2 girls, and you stayed there.
Yeah.
For.
Maybe a year.
And then you moved in with your
And
parents.
then when Linda was old enough to start kindergarten, we moved down here because, it took a while to get a job. Girls didn't work then.
Yeah.
That was unusual, so
Yeah.
that was terrible. So I moved down to Mother's because I could find a job. So then they could go down to school. The girls would go down to school, and I worked. And when I got off, I'd pick them up. And then...
So was your mom at home during those years?
She worked.
Because I was going to say, your mom worked.
She worked at the Navy base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But the
who
girls
was
were in
home with...
school.
Oh, both of them were in school.
Yeah, because I had the one in the nursery school.
Okay.
The other one, that's what I said, the nursery school and the first grade was door to door.
Oh, okay, all right.
So they both were at nursing home school, and then Linda could leave and then send her over to regular kindergarten class.
I see.
And then Izzy would come out, like then it was twice a year, but he'd come out, and I could see him a couple of times then when he came out.
Okay.
And then from there, while they were there, I also became a dance teacher then. Went down there. I did professional dancing. I was a lousy dancer, don't get that wrong. But I knew, because I had danced, which was unusual then. I had danced with a couple of Negro girls in school, Negro girls in school. And they are more loose.
Yeah.
They're not as stiff.
Yeah, a lot more fluid.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I had danced with them enough that I knew what my problem. I didn't know it at that time.
Right.
Then when we got out of school and all this other happened, then when I went over to teach the dancing, I knew the steps, I knew how. And he liked it over and above whoever else was in auditing, that he hired me.
Wow.
And I thought, man, I was better than what I thought I was. Because I thought the others were pretty darn good. But I was running and I taught them all. I taught them all the dancing. And about that time was when Izzy moved back in town. He lived in the hotels or rooming house or something over in, was it Illinois or Santa Paula? One over there. The train tracks go in front of the building.
Yeah.
Which town is that?
I think Santa Paula.
He had to go to that one. He lived over there. He worked for this other company. We weren't married then.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was up there for the 2 years. I was down here struggling along. And so it was working out real good. And all that time, before he ever left the Navy, he was in the Seabees, which is a different one. Before he ever left, he was after me to get married, and I wouldn't. And he loaned me his car. He always had a nice brand new car. He loaned me the car to go over and teach the cotillions over in Camarillo. And so he wanted to leave that car. He said, I'll leave it. And I said, no. It's like, no.
I don't want to owe any allegiance.
I didn't want no connections. Well, after you went through one round, that was enough. I was through. I really was. I was never going to be married again.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so then he came down. He wanted me to get married and move up there, and I wouldn't do it. And so, fine. I did whatever had to be here and do this stuff and that. And
But your parents, by this time, had, of course, met him.
Oh, yeah, they knew it. They knew it.
Did they push you towards anything?
Yeah, against.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not much was said or nothing bad, but eventually they got around to it.
Yeah.
They had to. What else could they do?
Yeah.
But no, they were against it.
But when they finally realized it was going to happen, did they approve of him just fine, or they didn't like him?
I didn't tell them.
Oh.
I didn't tell them because we were going around, and that's why my sister, I was over at Mother's house, and then Maxine called up. She said, you two always like an old married couple. She said, where in the heck are you going to get married? I says, anytime I say. She says, what? And I said, that's right. I said, he's always saying let's get married. Let's get married. And I says, and I always tell him no. So this last trip down, he says, all right, I'm tired of asking you. He said, when you're ready to get married, you call me and I'll be there. I says, oh, you might find somebody else in the meantime. I said, no. He says, no. I said, I'm through. He says, you're it. He says, whenever you're ready, you call me. Because he was still up in Wyoming painting. And so finally he just dumped the whole thing. He didn't like his partner. He took a partner in. He said that was a bad problem. He should have done that. Anyway, he got around and sold the company out, and he showed me some of the pictures of some of the equipment that he had. So anyway, he quit. He moved down here, and he called me up. He says, so I sold out. I quit. I got everything paid off. And he said, I moved down here, so I'll find a job down here. He says, can I come over and see you? Because it's Mother's house. And I told him, and I said, I thought, this is too serious. And I said, no. He said, why? I said, well, I've already made other plans for tonight. Well, there was another kid from Texas that once in a while, he'd show up to work on the missiles. He had those degrees that they could be the last one on the missile for the government only. So he'd come down and once in a while would go up. Mother didn't know that. I never told him. But he had a wife and 2 kids. But he liked dancing, and we liked dancing. That's why I said times are different. So he'd call up. He says, I'm over here for the next week. Do you want to go out dancing? And I said, yeah. We went down to Lawrence Wilkes. That's where that was a big time deal. So we'd go down there and dance the night away and had a great time. So he went back, and so after a while he wanted to go back to they were having problems anyway. And so he went over to church, and I thought, that's a good deal. Haul him off to church with you. It was nothing between us at all. It just, we went dancing. He'd go over to church, so he had something to do. When it came the weekend. And then so I talked to him a lot about him and his wife and so he decided to try it. So he went back home, so he changed his job in the company where he had to stay there all the time. And then he got to taking the wife and that to the church. And they all liked it. So about 2 years later, I got a little postcard. I told him his number to write to me. So that I says, that way, because I don't want problems there at all. I know what that is. If you straighten out and great. About 2 years later, there came a cute postcard and it said, church is doing great. We're all baptized. We're all covered. And he says, we go every Sunday. That was all. It didn't say who, where, or what it was on that card. But after 2 years, I laid around for a while and kept wondering, finally it hit me. That darn guy I know from Texas. But I thought, it's so good that he sent. So it finished the first So anyway, I told Izzy, and he said, oh, well, that's cute. Didn't have a jealous bone in this body. So then, anyway, he moved down here, and we got to go out. Before he moved here, the first time he came down, right at the very first part, he wanted to leave the car. He'd already told me he had the car parked in his mother's garage because he never wanted. He just used the work car. And his brother came over and wanted to take the car. She said, no. She said, as he told me, he said, that car's not to be moved. Not to be moved. And he said, well, I'm your brother. She says, I don't care. If he calls me and tells me, I'll let you have the keys. But other than that, no. Well, his mother just suffered. She was German again. So that went on. So then when he came down and said, well, I'll leave the car, because you need a car for the kids. And I thought, you don't want to stick me in the middle of this deal. I can have a car, but you won't let your brother have it.
Oh, that's funny.
It was a big Buick. It's a great big Buick, brand new.
Beautiful.
Well, you can haul the kids around in it. And I said, no. I'm back to no again. But anyway, so he finally moved down here. And he found out because of this guy from Texas. He says, okay. He says, he just got there that afternoon, so he's won that night. And I said, no, I already got other plans. So he went around hunting for jobs during the week. So on the weekend, he called up again. And I said, yeah, I can go out there. I told you on the phone I could go out this weekend. So we went out. We went down to Lawrence Welks, the Palladium in Hollywood. That was a dance. We were down there every weekend then. And he'd be over and we'd take the kids to the beach, to the parks and that. And then that's when Maxine called up. And I told her, I don't know. So I said, fine. I said, okay, I'll call him and ask him. So I called him on the weekend on the phone over there. And I said, do you want to get married? He says, yeah. Have you finally set the date? I said, how about next Saturday or
Funny.
Sunday? He says, okay. He says, okay, you have to be there. I said, well, I'll have to call up and tell him. So I called Maxine back. She called up. She said, I can't get married then. You have to wait till Saturday. We thought of Sunday because it's Sunday. He said, no. And I said, okay, we'll get married Saturday. I called him. He said, okay. So I called him back. I said, they got it all set for Saturday. They set up for Saturday, and the bishop over there will be over there. So we're going over.
Did he have any problems being married by a Mormon bishop?
He had no problem. Oh, he said anyone I wanted. But he was Catholic.
Yeah, very strong.
But he never did go.
He never went?
Never went. We did it first.
Uh-huh.
But then after that, he didn't go because he got busy working and didn't go.
Yeah.
So this house, the whole household became Mormons.
Yeah.
He doesn't really, he never thought about it, but maybe
No,
he did, but didn't
I
say.
mean, every prayer was always kind of an LDS prayer.
Yeah. And when the kids